Well, after a very entertaining week 5 of the UFL, three very good games this week, we have a lot of shakeups within the power rankings as we enter week 6. So before I dive right into it, I want to quickly say if you're new, subscribe is greatly appreciated. Leave a like and comment down below your own thoughts of this past week, of this upcoming week, and of the power rankings as a whole. So now, let's get right into it. To kick things off at number 8, it is the San Antonio Brahmas. It was a disappointing home opener for what has been a disappointing season as a whole for this team. Shut out the entire first half, and even in the one scoring drive that they did have in this game, it was set up by an interception that bounced off of the chest of Marcus Sims. 4 of the first 5 drives were 3 and outs for the Brahmas, and the offense just can't find the same magic that they had last year. A large part of it is mediocre to poor QB play. Both Kellen Mond and Jerry Guarantano threw picks in this game. All 3 of their backs had one breakaway run, but outside of those runs specifically, there's really nothing to bank on from this ground game. The defense tried their best to keep them in this, but when the offense only has one scoring drive in 10 total drives, including 5 drives that ended in a punt, it's just not going to cut it no matter what team you're going against. After how they played last week against DC, it looked like they might have found something to be able to claw their way back in the XFL conference. But after this showing, they still have a long ways to go. And this team was in the UFL championship last year. It's a very disappointing season, and one that, again, we're getting to the point where you might as well start looking to next season, as they currently sit 1-4 in an XFL conference where every other team is above 500. Number 7 is the Memphis Showboats, and that is how you make a statement with your first win on the season. It was a dominant first half that was capped off with a kick 6 by Isaiah Henney and some really solid plays by Dresser Wynn, who was making his first ever professional start. The defense made Birmingham look lost out there behind Cookus, but then the second half arrived and it wasn't the greatest of showings, and they couldn't quite put this one away, and thus we had the first ever overtime game in UFL history, which Memphis did get some help from the officials in. I'm not a big fan of the whole 2 live ball penalties against the defense means a successful conversion try, but that's the rule, so Memphis took advantage. But their defense did held strong on Birmingham nonetheless in that overtime period. And again, Dresser Wynn, first ever professional start. He threw for 235 yards, which included a 78-yard touchdown to D. Anderson. Deneric Prince had some solid runs in this game, but for the most part, the ground game was a non-factor. The defense forced a lot of pressure on Cookus, including getting home 3 times and picking him off once. And overall, it was a really solid showing to give Birmingham their first home loss in a long time. Memphis has probably found something with Dresser Wynn, which I am completely shocked by. I was not expecting him to play all too well against his Birmingham front 7. Turns out, he proved me wrong. I fully admitted he played pretty damn well in this game, and I'm interested to see how Memphis is going to play going forward behind Dresser Wynn as they come in at number 7. Number 6 is the Houston Roughnecks. Second win in 3 weeks for the Roughnecks, and they have seemingly found their quarterback in Jalen McClellan. Although this showing wasn't as great as he had last week, he still threw for 69% completion and led Houston into hostile territory for a very dominant win. The ground game showed up as well, with 2 touchdowns being split between Zaquandre White and Kirk Merritt, who has some pretty effective runs in this game, averaging 3.8 yards per carry between the two. The defense played some incredible lockdown defense as well, having 2 interceptions in this game and making it a living hell out there for the Brahmas offense. They had 4 sacks in this game, holding San Antonio to 1 for 10 on third down, and the team as a whole played very disciplined with only having 2 penalties against. 30 more rushing yards, damn near triple the amount of passing yards, 15 more minutes of time of possession. Just all around a really dominant showing for a team that has needed a dominant showing. Houston has been in a very rough spot in the UFL, and these past 3 weeks have been some great football they're playing, and they're looking hot. They have a chance to get to 500 next week as they play Memphis. This is going to be a really interesting week for them and for Memphis as well, but we'll talk more about that in predictions this week. But yeah, I do like Houston. They come in at number 6. Number 6 is the Birmingham Stallions. That is a very tough way to lose the first home game in a long while, but there are still some things that can be taken from this game. After a slow first half, Cocos definitely found a rhythm in the second half and led a comeback which included a late score to tie the game. If only they had either a solid first half or just better communication on the sideline between Skip Holtz and the special teams coordinator, this game could have been very different. And I mention that because right before what ended up being the kick 6, you can tell that Skip Holtz might have wanted to potentially go for it on that 4th and 6 to try and get in a better field position, and if they do still fail that 4th and 6, you're not going to be giving up a lot to Memphis on the other end. But potentially that the special teams coordinator said that, hey, we're in range for Harrison Mevis, which is fair. That is his career long. But you could tell that maybe the special teams coordinator wasn't confident, as right before Holtz called timeout, he said something that Holtz was not happy about because, again, he potentially would have wanted to run another play. But nonetheless, the play happened. They gave up the kick six nonetheless, which you should not be doing anyway. But yeah, just overall a very sloppy first half that led to the overtime loss and then sloppy communication on the sideline between head coach and assistant coach. Just all around, this is a very, very vulnerable Birmingham team, one that we haven't seen in a long time. As again, Cookus, I like how he played in the second half, but if he can't play full, consistent 60, it's not going to be the good guy going forward. They are expected to get Alex Magoo back after week 6, I believe. And if not, Matt Corral will be healthy enough by the end of the season. So as long as they make the dance, they have a good shot at going at repeating again. But for now, they come in at number 5. Number 4 is the Arlington Renegades. In one of the great games of this week, Arlington came so close to pulling in front of DC on top of the XFL Conference in what was kind of a surprisingly shootout of a game. 50% of Arlington drives ended in points, including 4 for 5 in the first half. Perez threw for 268 against a great DC defense with a touchdown to Deontay Burnett on the opening drive. Just about 70% completion as well continues to show why Luis Perez is the king of spring. Kalen Ballage also had a great showing with 76 yards and a touchdown in the loss. The defense was able to get home having 6 sacks, but at the same time, they struggled against this DC offense after the first quarter. They gave up over 300 yards to Jordan Teamu through the air and 4 total touchdowns for Teamu as well. They were in control during the first half, but then those last year Blues started to rear their ugly head as things started to stall during the second half, and thus DC was able to steal this game. It's still a great showing from Arlington nonetheless. It's not easy to put up 33 points against a DC defense. And again, this is a game that they easily could have and probably should have won, depending on who you ask. So this rematch between these two teams in a few weeks is going to be fantastic. Going to be must-see TV in the UFL, and the Renegades come in at number 4. Number 3 is the St. Louis Battlehawks, and it's about time we see them bounce back from having back-to-back really tough losses, and man did they do it in some pretty fancy fashion as well. A dominant second quarter allowed St. Louis to take the lead, and it took advantage of Mike Nolan's persistence of having a 2 QB system. They picked off Danny Edling twice, but they did struggle against Bryce Perkins and Toa Tawa. On the flip side, Duggan really surprised with his play in this one, was smart with the football, and had confidence in his legs, which were things that we saw Manny Wilkins do in the first 2 weeks of the season. 9 for 12 passing for Duggan with a touchdown to Hakeem Butler, and man are they glad that Hakeem Butler is back. He had 2 touchdowns in this game, both of which helped to seal this game as well, and one of them was off of a trick play with Blake Jackson throwing him the rock. Duggan also ran well, having 2 touchdowns with his legs, and Jacob Saylors ran effectively as well with 4.1 yards per carry. It was a great win against a very top team in the UFL, and this is the St. Louis team that people are scared to show up consistently. They played really well, they played smart with the football, the defense stepped in when they need to, and again, Hakeem Butler being back is a very, very important piece to this team, and it was showcased right away in this week. So St. Louis is back seemingly. We'll see how they continue to play throughout the rest of the season. For now, though, they come in at number 3. Number 2 is the Michigan Panthers. And I need Mike Nolan to be sat down with and ask why he continues to insist that Danny Edling sees the field. The offense just doesn't work nearly as well with him behind center as it does with Bryce Perkins. Bryce Perkins played a nearly perfect game in this one. 21 for 25 completion, 235 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. It was a great showing from Perkins. On top of Toa Tower also having a great showing on the ground, 74 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing for him. The offense started the second half with 3 straight touchdown drives, and they still barely came up short, in large part thanks to a touchdown they gave up right before the half, which was in thanks to Danny Edling throwing an interception right before the half. The defense was able to get home twice against Duggan, but they weren't really able to force any turnovers or third down attempts in this game. Another big deciding factor was the penalties. They had 10 against them, but they led in nearly every other category. The only thing that St. Louis had against them was they had 13 more rushing yards. This was a game Michigan was going to win, but they keep insisting on Danny Edling seeing the field, and it lost them this game massively in this one. This was a game where every single drive counted and mattered. You needed points on, and by putting in Danny Edling and him throwing an interception or 2, it lost them this game. If Bryce Perkins played the complete game with how efficient he was playing in this one, Michigan probably wins this game. So that's why they only moved down one spot from the number 1 spot last week to the number 2 spot this week. Number 1 is the DC Defenders, and that is certainly one way to bounce back after a frustrating loss the week prior. Tiamu had his best game so far this season, over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, to be paired with a team-leading 37 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Deion Jackson ran well in his limited carries with 32 yards, a touchdown, and a pretty impressive hurdle in the fourth quarter that helped set up the Tiamu touchdown run. But this was an extremely pass-happy approach due to going down early in this one. Tiamu threw 46 passes on the day, with a good chunk going towards former college teammate and former Miami Dolphin Braylon Sanders, who also had a touchdown in this game as well. DC played really well defensively, especially in the second half. They gave up 4 or 5 scoring drives, including 3 touchdown drives in the first half, but in the second half, they locked down 2 field goal drives on 7 drives total in the second half, which allowed the offense to get them back in this game. Shannon Harris continues to impress me with how great of a leader he is for this team, and going alongside that, Blake Williams is impressing me right now with how good of a defensive coordinator he is and the adjustments he's able to make. This DC team has gone through quite a lot of adversity in the coaching staff early on this season, and now they sit alone on top of the XFL conference and are most likely the favorites to win the UFL this season. It has been a very impressive season, and a season that DC has needed ever since they lost in the XFL championship in 2023. Last year was a very, very rough season for them. They are hitting on all cylinders so far this season, and this is a good example of what the offense can look like when it's clicking on all cylinders. Tiamu still got 50% completion. Would have liked to see a bit better, but he still threw for over 300 yards, so what am I complaining about? The DC Defenders are back at the top spot at number 1. Alright, so quick little rundown. The Brahmas at 8, Showboats at 7, Roughnecks at 6, Stallions at 5, Renegades at 4, Battlehawks at 3, Panthers at 2, and the DC Defenders find themselves back at the top spot at number 1. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said at the beginning, subscribe if you're new. It's greatly appreciated. Leave a like and comment down below your own thoughts and your own rankings. And I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one.